seconds so that, well, forget it. Let's go.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna
Vishnupad Purnamansa Pariprajakacharya Ashto Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Raj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kunigiri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamana Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande.
Hari Bol. Thank you so much, Maharaj. And thank you everyone for joining us for Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayādvaita Swami. It is Friday, November 11th, 2022 in New York, a day later in India. And we are picking up tonight where we left off in the third canto in the 9th chapter, Brahma's Prayers for Creative Energy. And my notes had us starting with verse number 33 this evening, because I don't remember that we went through it together. I could be wrong, I usually am. But if you'd prefer to start with 34, that's certainly fantastic. And in any case,
33 is fine with me.
Jai. Thank you, Maharaj. And thank you again for being with us from Vrindavan Dham, and all glories to your local congregation.
Thank you, Kendra Prabhu. And thank you to all. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yada Rahitam Atmanam Bhutendriya Gunashayai Sarupena Mayopetam Pashan Svaraja Mrichati. When you are free from the conception of gross and subtle bodies, and when your senses are free from all influences of the modes of material nature, you will realize your pure form in my association. At that time, you will be situated in pure consciousness. Purport. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it is said that a person whose only desire is to render transcendental loving service to the Lord is a free person in any condition of material existence. That service attitude is the swarup, or real form, of the living entity. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Chaitanya Charitamrita also confirms this statement by declaring that the real spiritual form of the living entity is eternal servitorship to the Supreme Lord. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Tadhati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lolita Sri Vishakhantanscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye Pancha Kolpatirubhyascha Kripa Sindho Pyevacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vashadi Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Hare Hare Yada Rahitam Atman Bhutendriya Gunashaya Swarupena Mayoke Tam Pasham Swaraja Ichjati. The Srila Prabhupada begins by discussing freedom. We have Rahita, free from, and Swaraja, the word for word meaning Srila Prabhupada gives the spiritual kingdom, Swarajam, his own kingdom. The usual or common meaning of Swaraja is freedom. Freedom. The self-rule, freedom. So the Iha Yasya Hare Bhasya Karmana Manasa Gira Nikalash Vapyavastasu Jivan Mukta Sujate. A person whose body, mind, and words are always engaged in the service of Krishna is considered liberated even in this material world, because his only desire is to render transcendental loving service to the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu confirms that this is the real form of the living entity. People always, not always, but people sometimes say that they're interested in knowing their Swarup. What is my actual Swarup? This is your actual Swarup. Nitya Krishna Das, everyone is an eternal servant of the Lord. This is our spiritual form. The real spiritual form of the living entity is eternal servitorship to the Supreme Lord. The Mayavadi school shudders at the thought of a service attitude in the living entity, not knowing that in the transcendental world, the service of the Lord is based on transcendental love. Transcendental loving service is never to be compared to the forced service of the material world. In the material world, even if one is under the conception that he's no one's servant, he's still the servant of his senses under the direction of the material modes. Actually, no one is master here in the material world, and therefore the servants of the senses have a very bad experience of servitude. They shudder at the thought of service because they have no knowledge of the transcendental position. Yes, no one wants to be servant, everyone wants to be master. Because servitude is, in the material world, servitude is unhappy. No one wants to be a servant. But in the spiritual world, service is relishable. In the material world, we're servants when we have to be, when we're stuck. When we need money or we need some kind of favor, then we serve. But otherwise, we want freedom. We want to be able to do whatever we want. But as Prabhupada points out, even the person who is unwilling to serve becomes a servant of his senses. The Mayavadis want to get rid of individuality and service at the same time. Individuality is a source of trouble. Service is a source of trouble. Better to be impersonal or void. Because they don't know that and this for them is blissful. To be relieved of material misery is their idea of bliss. Because they don't have knowledge of the transcendental loving feelings. In transcendental loving service, the servitor is as free as the Lord. The Lord is Swaraj, fully independent, and the servant is also fully independent, or Swaraj, in the spiritual atmosphere, because there's no forced service. There, the transcendental loving service is due to spontaneous love. A reflected glimpse of such service is experienced in the service of the mother unto the son, the friend's service unto the friend, or the wife's service unto the husband. These reflections of service by friends, parents, or wives are not forced, but are due only to love. Here in the material world, however, the loving service is only a reflection. The real service, or service in Swarup, is present in the transcendental world in association with the Lord. The very same service in transcendental love can be practiced in devotion here. This verse is also applicable to the Jnani school. The enlightened Jnani, when free from all material contaminations, namely the gross and subtle bodies, together with the senses of the modes of material nature, is placed in the Supreme and is thus liberated from material bondage. The Jnanis and the devotees are actually in agreement up to the point of liberation from material contamination. But whereas the Jnanis remain pacified on the platform of simple understanding, the devotees develop further spiritual advancement in loving service. The devotees develop a spiritual individuality in their spontaneous service attitude, which is enhanced on and on, up to the point of Madhurya Rasa, or transcendental loving service, reciprocated between the lover and the beloved. So the verse can be read in different ways. You will realize your pure form in my association, Swarup, Swarajam, Vrijtati, and you'll come to my kingdom. Otherwise, Yada Rahitam Atmanam, when the self is free, Bhuta Indriya Gunashaya, from the influence of material elements, the influence of the material senses, Swarupena, then he's in pure existence. Maya Upetam, okay, approaching me, the Jnanis are not quite sure about that. Pashan Swarajam Rishtati, Mayi Pasham, Maya Pasham, Maya Upetam, Pashan, and Swarajam Rishtati, you'll enjoy. independence. So the Gyanis and the devotees are on the same page about that. But what is Swarup and what is Swarajya? The Gyanis only go up so far as freedom from material existence, being situated in pure consciousness. But what happens in that freedom? Just like sometimes, the being free from jail is nice, but then when you're free, what do? It's not just that you spend the rest of your life, I'm free, I'm free. You have to do something. You have to do something. And if there's no engagement, then prison seems better. So the Gyanis have no information of transcendental relationships with the Lord, or they dismiss whatever information is available to them because they think that this is just another version of material existence or an extension of material existence, or however they think of it. They're unaware that of the spiritual world of the Lord and the spiritual dealings of the Lord. It's interesting that at the end of the purport, so we talked about Swarup basically means that we're the servant of Krishna. But Srila Prabhupada elaborates, the devotees develop a spiritual individuality in their spontaneous service attitude, which is enhanced on and on up to the point of Madhurya Ras, or transcendental loving service, reciprocated between the lover and the beloved. So Srila Prabhupada sort of ups the level of involvement here from simple realization that one is a servant of the Lord up to developing a spontaneous taste for serving in a particular way. Developing a spiritual individuality with a taste for serving Krishna in a particular way, on and on up to the point of Madhurya Ras. Right, are there some comments or questions? Kendra Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. A couple of things occurred to me. One is that the way that Prabhupada presents this idea of the Swarup, of the living entity in this verse, as you've spoken on this already, that he says that the service attitude is the Swarup. And I was thinking how it can be a tendency of a conditioned soul to think of our Swarup as something that's slightly better than our material body, something that's not as perishable, not as subject to decay. But the way that he puts it here is that it's like that term that form follows function, that our attitude determines who we are. It's not the other way around. It's just a whole different way to look at our real self.
Yeah, as you said, it's the attitude. The sadhus may dress in a particular way or try to assume the outward features of a particular spiritual identity, but the essence of the spiritual identity is a taste for serving Krishna in a particular spontaneous way. And that's what the kingdom is the kingdom of God is the kingdom of service, of loving service to Krishna. I was thinking about that in relationship to Vrindavan, that my experience is that Vrindavan is a good place to be if you have some service to do. If you're studying or if you're doing some active service for the missionary activities, or you've got some project, if you have service to do, then Vrindavan is a wonderful place. It's the land of devotional service. But if we don't have any service to do, there's always service to do, but if we're not engaged in any service, then Vrindavan is not a very happy place. Or it's not a place that we can stay. Or it's a place we can stay, but not really stay. We're on the surface of Vrindavan, but not entering into Vrindavan. Or we're just, if I just come to Vrindavan for holiday, even then something is there, but not much in comparison to the devotees who come to serve. This is also the difference between, say, the beggars lined up along the parikrama path, just collecting money and smoking ganja. Not that they all do, but some. There's a difference between them and the pure devotees who are constantly engaged in service. So the service is the essence of the whole thing. The whole thing is service. And transcendental service and transcendental loving service. That's our objective. Thank you for that, Kendra. The Murari says, despite the living entity's aversion to service, the concept pervades society. Government service, military service, social service, to serve and protect. Prisoners serve their time, but it's inescapable. It's inescapable, but no one likes to introduce themselves as a servant, except politicians. And people do. A politician, a businessman, we're here to serve you. Service is our business. No one's more important than the customer, and so on. George Brown is a servant of the people, and so on. So we advertise ourselves as servants. Or the man or the woman says, I just want to make you happy. And it's just a simple lie. He wants, or she wants to gratify their senses. But I just want to serve you. I just want to make you happy. So the servants in the material world, therefore Prabhupada says, it's a reflection of the person in the more, in the relationship between mother and the child and so on. There's a more, a greater selflessness and less artifice. But we see it quite grossly in commercial and political dealings. But in any case, yes, service.
I was just thinking when you mentioned that, it made me laugh, because I know in the courting process with my wife, I deluded myself to think that it genuinely was this intention to serve the other person. It wasn't just words. I actually felt that this is my desire, when in reality there is a self-serving mentality. And I was thinking that also applies in spiritual life, where we sort of delude ourselves that I'm really wholeheartedly here to serve Krishna, but we maintain so many. Actually, if the circumstances are not congenial, then maybe the service mood slackens, or we take shelter of material things.
Ahoitakiya pratiyata yayatma suprasidati. On the spiritual platform, I don't know if your question was well heard. In the in the relationship with your wife, you're thinking in the beginning that, well, yes, I really want to serve. But there's also, you recognize some element of selfishness also. And in service, generally devotional service, there may be some element of selfishness. So therefore, ahoitakiya pratiyata yatma supasidati. Bhagavatam specifies that to be truly pleasing to the self, or truly pleasing to Krishna, atma suprasidati. The service should be unmotivated, ahoitaki, and then it will be apratiyata, uninterrupted. And that we acknowledge, first speaking to married life from my limited outsider viewpoint, it seems that as far as possible, the bad bargain, although Prabhupada said that about material, as a sannyasi, I'm free to say that householder life is a bad bargain. But to make the best of a bad bargain, there actually should be an attitude of service. And that my husband or my wife is a servant of Krishna, and by serving my husband or wife, I'm serving Krishna. So that sense, the more that sense is there, that my business here is to serve Krishna, the better the relationship. And the more the business is, let me be the master, let me enjoy, the more there'll be trouble or dissatisfaction, difficulty, and so on. The same thing can be said about devotional service more generally. We're thinking that something for Krishna, something for me, something for Krishna, something for me. Because just by serving Krishna, I won't be satisfied, or I won't have my needs taken care of, or it just won't cover all the territory. And so something for me. But the more we surrender to Krishna, do what's pleasing to Krishna, and not consider our own any separate motive, the more we become happy also. Rakshasyati iti vishvasho. Krishna will protect me. Krishna will maintain me. I don't have to separately worry about all those things. I just have to serve Krishna. And householders are engaged in some occupation for earning money, but they still should think that this is for Krishna, and any success is possible by the grace of Krishna. The more I'm thinking of Krishna, the more the more it's in the context of service to Krishna, the better. Kendra Prabhu.
Oh, thank you, Maharaj. There was something else that I was thinking when Prabhupada says here that transcendental loving service is never to be compared to the forced service of the material world. That made me consider how, well, when we are disappointed in our material world service, or we're forced to serve our senses, we're forced to serve uncongenial masters, and we become very morose and frustrated in our desire to enjoy. And then we're shown the alternative of devotional life, of surrender to Krishna. It's like, yes, we can understand that service to Krishna is not forced. It is voluntary. It's based on love, and it's reciprocated with Krishna by love. But until we have a certain level of faith, that it may appear to us to be just like, okay, I'm failing over here, so I guess my only alternative is to go over there, even though I don't really want to, but okay, I guess I will. So it seems like not forced, but not altogether motivated by selfless love quite yet, at least in the beginning stage, if you know what I mean.
Artartarti jigyasu ganicha. In the beginning, we may approach because we just feel beaten up by the material nature and we want out, we want some relief. So that's a mixed motive, but it's accepted because it leads us to Krishna. Or we're in economic trouble, so we approach Krishna. Oh, Krishna, please help me. It's a mixed motive, but it's accepted. That, all right, he's a neophyte, he has some mixed motives, but he's approaching me. So he's considered pious. It's accepted. There's something else I was thinking. Yeah, and regarding to forced service, the modern civilization, in the name of giving us all kinds of comforts or enjoyments, is making everyone more and more into a servant in the traditional sense of the term. You go to the college or the university, and first of all, you're now an indentured servant because you have to pay off your student loans. But you're trained up. You're trained to be a servant, to go from door to door, and as Prabhupada said, with your diploma in your teeth, and bark and wag your tail and say, please employ me. I'm a very good servant. Here's my CV. Educated to be servant class, Shudra. Servant, but he's servant, and particularly people who, working people know that now corporations, they're not happy with 9 to 5 at all. They want your life. They want you to be always available by telephone. There's a meeting at 8 o'clock. There's an international meeting at 7 o'clock in the morning, or it's at 8 o'clock at night. And we need you for this, and you're stuck because jobs are hard to get. And so you're working, in theory, 8 hours a day, but in fact, much more, and forced servitude. Otherwise, you're out there in the wild with no job in the world of the unemployed. So increasing, and then we get some money, and then we become the servants of the people who've gotten, what would you say, who've stirred up our senses and gotten us to think that a Gucci handbag is the sign of real life. So we become servants of their stockholders in so many ways. I'm getting some facility or some happiness, but really I'm serving their purposes, and I'm tricked into thinking that I'm serving mine, or I'm serving my purposes, but not really. It's not going to make me happy. And even those who are tricking us, they're also being tricked. The whole world, the cheaters and the cheated. They're cheating us, but they're also being cheated. This is the material world. And in the spiritual world, there's no cheating, actually, there's love. In the material world, love is basically cheating. I love you so much, go get off it. It's just a line, as I say. Saraswati says, I remember a senior extended family member used to criticize my mother and her seva to her Srinathji deity, telling her she was wasting her time. She would proudly say how devoted she is to her children by serving them with complete love. But when those very children grew up, They had no need of her, and she became bothersome to them. She became so depressed, knowing her children wanted to avoid her. So in the end, her devotion to children ended up in grief. I see it was the she is the family member. Family member is very proud. You're wasting your time serving Srinathji while I'm serving my family. And at the end, the family basically just said, heck with you, you're old and useless. We have our own life. So this is the material. Someplace, what is that? Someone can look for this. When the shroud of illusion is removed, the dead body of material family affection is at once revealed. Someone want to look for that? If you look for shroud and family, you'll probably find it. I see, Praveen's looking for it. Praveen says, Yashoda wanted to open Krishna's mouth, although Krishna wasn't wanting to open his mouth. All residents of Vrindavan wanted Krishna's reciprocation, and Krishna has to fulfill their desires. So it is not just pure devotion without any expectation. Oh, yeah. As soon as the shroud of illusion is removed, the dead body of material so-called love and affection is at once manifest to the naked eye. The Lord expertly removes the shroud of illusion for the neophyte devotee by depriving him of his material assets. And thus the devotee finds himself alone in the midst of his so-called relatives. And so when the shroud of material illusion is removed, the dead body of family love and affection is at once manifest to the naked eye. So, yes, there's expectations. They expect that Krishna will go out and herd the cows. This is not the servitude of the material world, where they want some reciprocation. This is not the dull dealings of the material world where everyone wants to satisfy his senses. They want reciprocation, means they want to please Krishna. And the reciprocation is part of that spontaneous desire to please the Lord. And the evidence is that if he doesn't reciprocate, still, man prananatas tu seva. You may reciprocate or not reciprocate, or you may reciprocate by trampling me. Still, I'll serve you. This is our love. Okay, anything else? Yes. Nana karma vitanena prajabhavi susrikshataha natma vasida jasminste parshiyan mananugraha. Since you have desired to increase the population innumerably and expand your varieties of service, you shall never be deprived in this matter, because my causeless mercy upon you will always increase for all time. Purport. A pure devotee of the Lord, being cognizant of the facts of the particular time, object, and circumstances, always desires to expand the number of devotees of the Lord in various ways. Such expansions of transcendental service may appear to be material to the materialist, but factually they are expansions of the causeless mercy of the Lord toward the devotee. Plans for such activities may appear to be material activities, but they are different in potency, being engaged in the satisfaction of the transcendental senses of the Supreme. The Nana Karma Vitanena, by expansion of Nana Karma, all sorts of activities, Prajabhavi Sushikshataha, desiring to increase the population. So Srila Prabhupada draws this wonderful parallel here between the work of Brahma, increasing literally the population of the universe, and the varied activity of the devotee endeavoring to spread Krishna consciousness and thereby increase the devotee population. Praja, Bhavi Sushikshata, desiring to increase the population. That's the, and with varieties of activities toward that end, one way or another, by publishing books, by opening temples, by this program or that program, trying to spread Krishna consciousness. For such a person, na atma avasiditi asmit, you'll not be disappointed or bereaved. Varshiyan mat anugrahat, because my causeless mercy will always be increasing for you. You're trying to increase your service. I'm trying to increasingly to give you causeless mercy. Varshiyan, I suspect that this has something to do with the idea of raining down. I'm not quite sure. Someone could look it up, but my guess is guessing's not so good. But it does. There's a formal, a resemblance in form here. So I suspect. But in any case, the meaning is the same. That increasing. You're trying to increase the number of devotees, or increasingly engage people in service. So I'll increasingly engage you in service, and that will be a happy situation. And the activities that the devotee performs may appear to be material activities to the materialists, but actually they're expansions of the causeless mercy of the Lord toward the devotees. So the more the devotee is engaged in service, the more he can understand Krishna is being merciful toward me. He's engaging me in his service. And Anandam Buddhipardana. The more one spreads service, the more one becomes engaged in service, and the more one gets the mercy of Krishna. Did you look up Varshiyan?
Yeah, I'm looking it up. I found nourish, increase. Obviously, Varsh is rain.
Varsh
So
is
nourish,
rain, so
increase.
nourish, increase. So if someone's engaged in endeavoring vigorously to spread Krishna's mercy, and Krishna will rain mercy upon him. Yes.
I've witnessed, of course, recently, there's so many initiations in Krishna Balaram temple. So many initiations taking place. So we are increasing the devotee population.
Yeah,
Serious.
so many initiations here in Vrindavan. So increasing. I've told before there was an initiation at 61 2nd Avenue. And there's a picture afterwards. The devotees are, Prabhupada's leaving the temple, and the devotees have gone with him. They're literally dancing in the streets. The picture appeared in, I think, chanting Hare Krishna or something. And Prabhupada was walking back to his apartment at 26 2nd Avenue. Everybody's dancing and chanting. And Prabhupada just quietly said, he's walking. Said, we have increased the disciplic succession from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Krishna says, I'll give you mercy, not just now, but as Prabhupada says in the translation, for all time. Okay. Yeah. Vishwanath says that Varshiyan means greater. Yes. And Radhesha says that it's derived from Varsh.
Well, we have three different Varshas: years, tract of land, or rain. But the only one that makes sense contextually is nourishing, rain, increasing.
Well, Varshiyan, for years and years. Prabhupada's, otherwise, where's Prabhupada getting that from? That Vishwanath also, the mercy will increase for all time.
Both contexts of their years and increasing.
So I can't say for sure that that's where that's coming from, but and for that matter, in all the lands, the mercy is coming to all the different lands, and for years and years together, and it's raining down. So whichever meaning you take, it's greater. It's Anandam Buddhi Vardhana. Yes, Kendra Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. When I was reading this purport, it reminded me of, I believe this is in maybe the introduction to the second volume of the first canto that Prabhupada brought with him. But in it, he's speaking of himself working so hard to get the book published, and how those who might not understand the motives of a devotee think that he's just a businessman like any other publisher or writer, or just trying to, get his name out there. That's what this purport reminded me of.
Yeah, doing business in the guise of the renounced order of life. They see that we're moving in the paper market. They think, what's the difference between him and me? He's a businessman and I'm a businessman. But they don't recognize the crucial distinction that this is Krishna's business. Prabhupada said the same thing. He said, next door, this is a temple, and next door it's a house. What's the difference? It's the same bricks, the same iron. But here the center is Krishna. There the center is myself, my own sense gratification. So you have a house and we have a temple. And so in all these categories or all these departments, when Krishna is there, then it becomes, what is that? Well, it comes up in the next verse. it becomes free from material contact or material, the binding force of the material energy. Okay, anything else? Okay, I think we can stop and have kirtan. And who wants to lead kirtan today? Adesha, do you want to lead kirtan, or somebody else want to lead kirtan?
What's it? Oh, kirtan.
Yeah, kirtan, you know kirtan. I understand that the kirtan here was sort of not coming through on the audio channel. I've changed the setting. Let's see that it's still changed. To keep room from suppressing what might be considered background noise. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, so let's see how we do.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Om Srimad Bhagavatam Srimad Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Raj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai Nama Charta Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kunda Thakur Ki Guru Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamana Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Lord praying. Thank you very, very much.
Jai Jai, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining us. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayādvaita Maharaj Ki Jai.
Celebrate the Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Lord
Super tight schedule with class coming up at 8 and Bridge now.